So thank you everyone for being here today. It's a great turnout. My name is Diane and I'm a member of Senator Leahy's staff, and I'm also co-chair of the Planning Committee for the Women's Economic Opportunity Conference. Thank you. Which is make me blush. Thank you. And Senator Marcel has been hosting this for 23 years now, since 1996. So we're really happy to be here and have such a good turnout. A special shout out to my planning committee, co-chair Heather Gagno, Brenda Plastridge, who's been here since the start, just about, and any other planning committee members, just wave your hands. Thanks. Thank you. And I also want to thank Vermont Technical College President Pat Moulton for hosting us. VTC is always such a great host and provides us with such support for this day between IT and food and everything else to make this happen. Our 21 sponsors, their names are all listed on your bag, so I won't go through the list, but they're the ones who enable this conference to be free and accessible to all Vermonters, which has been very important to Senator Leahy all these years, so thank you. DC staffers who came all the way from DC, Senator Leahy's staff, as well as our Vermont staff, and a particular shout out for Lisa Briganti and Maddie Dunn, who are my co-partners and staff. And of course today's keynote speaker, Jen Kimmich of Alchemist Brewery. Thank you, Jen. It's my pleasure now to introduce VTC President Pat Moulton. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, everyone. And a second shout out and thanks to the Planning Committee and also to our very own Nate Ball, who is our new events coordinator and knocking it out of the park for us, and our team from Sodexo. I was walking by Maury coming over here. Something smells really good coming out of that dining hall. So I hope you guys are in for a great lunch. But welcome to Vermont Technical College. Welcome to Randolph Center. You managed to pick a day where the sun's shining, it's not snowing, it's not sleeting or hailing, and that's a beautiful thing. So, but we order up weather like this every day, sure. But I also want to thank you, Senator Leahy, for 23 years of sponsoring this event. And when I think of the women and others who've come through these doors for 23 years and probably gone on and done amazing things as leaders in their community or of their business or in their state, my hat's off to you, sir, for being willing to do this work for so many years. You know, I was reflecting a little bit, I was looking on your website, Senator, and reflecting a little on the data that you had there. Data from Change the Story, about 23,000 women-owned businesses in Vermont, and $2.2 billion annually, 36,000 employees. Wow. I get pretty excited when I hear that kind of data. And then when we hear year after year from folks like Corinne Prevost last year, this year Jen Kimmich, the amazing work these ladies are doing running their businesses and running philanthropic organizations, it's just really exciting. And when I was at a Emerging Leaders graduation on Thursday, Emerging Leaders is an SBA-sponsored event where business leaders take 6 months away from their business to work on their business, and we host that on our campus in Williston. And literally approximately half of those businesses are owned by women, and it was really exciting to see. I think about the 2 women astronauts who in the last 2 days have made history, finally, because, yeah, we managed to get a suit the right size. Hello. Can you tell it was men running the outfitting of these astronauts? And I think of the historical number of women in Congress and the strength and courage of women like Christine Blasey Ford and Nancy Pelosi to stand up to the bullies of this world. I think of the women athletes who've shattered world records just in the last couple of weeks. I think about all those glass ceilings that have been shattered, and I get very excited. Then thinking about the next generation, the Greta Thunbergs of the world, who on her own are leading worldwide protests against climate change, and her take no crap attitude in her speech at the UN. I mean, that was amazing. I met a young lady here who led the climate march from Randolph High School. She was volunteering at a blood drive because apparently that's when you're a sophomore in high school, you lead marches and volunteer. I mean, the fact that she had found her volunteer and finding her voice is amazing. It's exciting. I think about the 600 women and volunteers who were here Thursday for the Women Can Do conference, sponsored in part by Vermont Works for Women. They're here to learn non-traditional careers in being a pilot, an engineer, construction, you name it. And Rosie's Girls, the leadership camp we sponsor, again with Vermont Works for Women, every summer here on this campus. Young ladies coming to learn leadership skills. It's just so exciting. And the women who come here and take STEM and non-traditional careers for their education, and the men who engage in allied health. It's nice to see beards in a nursing class. It's nice to see skirts at Diesel and at construction management. This is exciting, and this is our future. And I see all of you here today, many of you who've been here year after year, just soaking it in, exploring, engaging, and developing yourself to go out and be those leaders yourself. It's so exciting. And I have faith, and I believe more glass ceilings are going to get shattered, including that apparently reinforced tempered glass ceiling that resides at the White House. Because someday we're going to bust through that one too. And I believe soon. And I'm so grateful for the millions of women who've come before us to get us all to this place, and the millions more who are going to take us to a place where it's not unusual to see women in leadership positions, leading countries, leading businesses, leading boards. I'm excited for that. And I congratulate all of you for being here to be part of that movement. But now it's my pleasure to introduce a man who truly is one of the greatest advocates we've had for women's rights, for equals rights, and who also has smacked down bullies in Washington. Our very own Dean of the U.S. Senate, Patrick Leahy.
Thank you. Thank you. This is great. Marcel and I are looking forward to this. Of course, we've known Pat forever since she was just a little girl. I had hair. But, and her dad and I used to tease the heck out of each other and enjoyed it. Both Marcel and I want to thank you. We were talking about this yesterday as we were flying up from Washington, and this is one thing we look forward to probably as much as anything every single year. 23 years of it. When we walk through in Judd Hall and we're here, we feel the energy. We see people we've known over the years. Poor Rick has to film us all the time. But it's inspirational. I still remember we did the first one at then Trinity College, and we didn't know whether anybody would show up, and we had a little classroom. So many showed up, they said, we'll move it to a bigger classroom. I said, wait, we got to go. We finally ended up in the gym to get everybody in there. We said, maybe people care. And so, Pat, it makes it so much easier. I should say President Moulton. That's kind of a nice thing. President Moulton, how's that? Having us here at the Vermont Technical College. And Diane Derby, I wanted to thank, my sister Mary called me and said, don't you forget to thank Diane. I said, of course I thank Diane. I couldn't do this without her. And Lisa and Maddie and everybody else that came, those who are from Washington who are willing to take the weekend off and come to Vermont and for the season. It's hard to work, but somebody has to do it. And we were, again, Marcel and I have talked about this so much. We thought about, as I said, when we started the conference in '96, but we heard about the Burlington High School girls soccer team wearing jerseys to promote equal pay. So we got one, each of us. And if you go on my website, you see the two of us wearing these with the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol behind us. We had an awful lot. Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't. They look familiar. We had so many people who came by and said, yeah, we agree with that. Good. And make sure you pay people that right way. I think of player's mother, Jessica Nordhaus. She worked with us to shine a bright light right here in our own state, where women make 84 cents every dollar earned by a man. And that gap is even wider for women of color. That is wrong. And just keep fighting. We have to change that. We cannot have that. We cannot have it. The Congress has to change it. The members of Congress have to change it. We have to. Now, some say that one sign of solidarity might not make a difference. Well, it does make a difference. It does make a difference. Because we have a whole generation of young women raising their voice. Pat, you mentioned Greta Thunberg of Sweden. Let me tell you, her voice was heard not only throughout this country, but it was heard throughout the world. It was heard by most of the people in our government. And it was, I'll tell you, I had senators, Republicans and Democrats coming up to me and saying, wow, wasn't she great? Now, we have 7.5 million people, mostly her age, took part in these climate strikes in 180 countries. Somebody's got to wake up and see that. And then we saw, after the devastating school shooting in Parkland, Florida in 2018, hundreds of thousands of students around the country, including here in Vermont, take part in the March for Our Life rallies. My son and I hosted those who came down to Washington, demanding lawmakers take action. And we have to keep doing that. We saw young women march in droves to the women's rallies. We heard their voices in the Me Too movement. I remember when we walked with women in the gigantic women's march 2.5 years ago. Proudly there with our daughter, our granddaughter, and friends. And a few years ago here at this conference, we heard from 4 high school students, just a few years ago here, from Chittenden County. They were new Americans who realized our country should be welcoming people to come into the country and make it great. They formed a youth slam poetry group. It's called Muslim Girls Making Change. And their call for human rights, equality, and dignity for everyone was loud and clear. And I suspect everybody here agrees in that call for dignity. Inspired by work where as Vice Chairman of the Appropriations Committee in Washington, I can send spending to these important priorities. And when we had to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act, I rewrote it. And I got bipartisan help in rewriting it to add Native Americans, add sexual exploitation of children. And every so often somebody tries to weaken it. Nobody is going to weaken the Violence Against Women Act as long as I'm there. We'll fight for women's reproductive health. We'll fight to raise our families out of poverty. And I will continue to raise my voice for equal pay, as I did recently, in leading a Senate effort calling on the International Football Federation, FIFA, to immediately eliminate gender-based pay discrimination between male and female athletes. Somebody suggested I should say that equal pay for equal work should not be a political football. I said, do I really dare use a pun like that? I do remember the head of the women's team said, yes, there are two differences between us and the men's team. One, we are paid less, but secondly, we win the championship. So I remember when Lily Ledbetter was here in her Supreme Court case. What that means, we have to keep fighting for it. Some of you may have been in a week ago, a couple weeks ago, Marcel and I, at the Flint Center, when we had Congressman John Lewis was there, a great civil rights leader. He reminded us of the changes he's seen in a generation. And this is the message I remember so much. He told us, look forward, not backward. Because young people make the difference. I share that optimism. Jen Kimmich is here. Marcel and I were both excited when she accepted our invitation. As you know, she's the co-founder, CEO of the Alchemist Brewery. I've made it a point to drop by there, just doing due diligence as a senator to make sure it's operating and make sure that they have a product that's tasteful. Jen, I'm going to come back again after that. Her popular still-based business, along with Heady Topper beer, great boost to Vermont's draw as a tourist destination. We had people come in my office at Washington want to know where it is. And then they get a map out and look at all the different places and go like that. But it wasn't that easy. Remember Tropical Storm Irene? Well, she overcame that in Waterbury. It's a true show of strength. But then, not only making a great beer, look at her advocacy on policy issues, her volunteer work on local boards, her foundation that supports young Vermonters, her concern for our water as a resource. That, she makes a difference. And I brag about her here. I brag about her in Washington. I want some of the people who don't think about these things to start doing it. So please welcome Jen Kimmich.
I think everyone's getting over this terrible cold that's going around. This is really cool. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you to Diane Derby and all of the organizers that make this event happen every year. And thank you to Senator Leahy and Marcel for asking me to speak today. But more important, thank you for your commitment to women and all Vermonters. Senator Leahy and Marcel, thank you for showing us what is possible when we work together. As a team, the two of you have inspired and continue to inspire my husband and I as we too work together to complement each other professionally and with our family also. Whether it has been seeing you both at our places of business or in Washington, D.C., or literally running into you in airport terminals. You have shown us how powerful we can be when we work together side by side. Thank you for that. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit about the history of the Alchemist, and then I'm going to talk about some of our workplace policies that I think really help women and economic opportunity here in Vermont. And then I'm also going to share some of the things that are really keeping me up at night as well. I feel very fortunate to have grown up in Barre, Vermont. I was surrounded, supported, and inspired by many strong women, from my mother and my best friend's mother, who both worked so hard to balance family and career, to Governor Madeleine Kunin, who showed so many young Vermonters, like myself, how powerful a woman's voice can be. When I was young, like most of you here, I was always asked what I wanted to be when I grow up. And I hated this question because I really never knew what I wanted to be. So sometimes I would respond with an answer. I was trying to impress whoever was asking me. So sometimes I would respond with brain surgeon. But I didn't like science and I wasn't a great student. And other times I would say I wanted to be a New York City police officer. because it was the 80s, and what young woman did not love Cagney and Lacey? But the truth of the matter is, I never knew what I really wanted to be. I do remember from a young age, probably about the age of 9, playing with my best friend Joanna, and we would spend hours. We would set up the executive office in her walk-in closet, and we would put the secretary's desk in her bedroom. It was the 80s, so we called executive assistants, administrative assistants, secretaries then. But we would set up the secretary's desk in her bedroom, and we would take turns being the boss. Now, I don't recall what business there was. There was no business. That didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was that we were in charge. At this same time, I was drawn to activism and social engagement. At the age of 12, I joined the Rainbow Coalition to campaign for Jesse Jackson. And at the age of 15, I campaigned for Bernie Sanders for his first run for Congress in 1988. In addition to being drawn to business, although I had no idea what type, and feeling connected to social engagement and activism, I also had a strong curiosity about beer. Now, just to be clear, it wasn't the drinking of beer that fascinated me. When I was growing up in Barrie, it was the social power of beer that really struck me. When I was growing up, if beer was being consumed, it was usually a fun time. It was Friday night, neighbors were over, my parents were kicking back after a long, stressful week, or it was the holidays and people were around, having fun, singing, laughing. Now, I know there are plenty of bad memories that include alcohol, and I'm going to circle back to that later, but the important thing for now is to know that as a child, I was interested in the power of beer. My parents actually love to tell this story about how we took a trip to St. John, New Brunswick. I was 10 years old, and I would not stop nagging them for a tour of the Moosehead Brewery. I made them crazy until they would bring me there. And this fascination with beer continued into my teen years. In fact, I recently ran into a childhood friend. She looked at me. I was at the brewery, and she said, "Jenny." And I think she's going to say, "Look what you built here. Look what you've done." And she says, "Jenny, you've always loved beer." And I did. And you know, this affinity for beer, and more important, entertaining and bringing people together, continued well into my college years at UVM. So much so that I ended up on double secret probation my freshman year after a couple of parties in my small dorm room. But the good news is that I had to do a lot of community service for that, and I loved community service. So much so that I would skip the business classes I hated so much, economics and calculus, to go sit on Upper Church Street volunteering for the Peace and Justice Coalition, handing out brochures. Not a good use of your tuition money, but little did I know that just a few years later, I would meet my husband, John, and together we would build a life and a business together that would allow me to be the businesswoman I always wanted to be, the socially engaged activist that was within me, and it all revolves around beer. So I met John just a few years after I graduated from UVM. I had traveled around for a few years, and I came back figuring out where I was going to go to graduate school. I was working at the Vermont Pub and Brewery. We fell in love right away. I always say I fell in love with his beer, and he fell in love with my work ethic. But there was more than that. There was a spark. And we married in 1997. We spent the first 6 years of our lives working multiple jobs. We were above nothing. We would scrub toilets. We would carry bags. We would do anything. We worked multiple jobs. We saved as much money as we could. And at the same time, I worked on a business plan, a financial plan, while my husband John was working out beer recipes in the garage. We traveled all over. We worked for other breweries from Wyoming to Boston, and we finally opened our 60-seat brew pub in the village of Waterbury in 2003. The day we opened, we had $200 in the bank. We had 15 no employees, and we had no health insurance. The next day I found out I was pregnant. Everything worked out miraculously. We were busy. People loved our pub. I managed to get health insurance, and 10 months later, I was hosting and bussing with baby Charlie and the Bjorn. I won't lie, though, those early years were very tough. We lived paycheck to paycheck. We couldn't afford childcare. No matter how busy our pub was, we struggled to make ends meet. The fact of the matter is, it's really tough to run a restaurant and be profitable if you care about quality. By the time our son Charlie turned 8, we had made the decision to build a small production brewery just up the road from our pub in Waterbury. We began build-out in January of 2011, and just like when we opened our pub, we were over budget, we were behind on our timeline, and once again we were broke. Fortunately, we were really busy at our pub that summer, so we were able to take all the money we were making and keep putting into our production brewery. Ironically, when we were finally ready to put our first fill our cans at the end of August 2011, the day before Tropical Storm Irene came through and totally destroyed our pub. But with a lot of hard work and a lot of support from our community and our employees, we were able to rebound and come back stronger than ever before. Within a year and a half after opening that production brewery, we increased production 600%, and we were able to hire back all of the employees that lost their jobs that wanted to keep working for us. There were a few that didn't. Today, we run 2 production breweries, our own distribution company, and we employ 48 full-time salaried employees. And we're Vermont's only B-certified brewery. We attribute our success to making the highest quality craft beer possible, but also to the investments that we have made in our employees. We always say the strongest asset we have as a company is our team of employees. I am often asked, what is it like to work in a male-dominated industry? Well, I can't answer that well because we're not a typical brewery. And by that, I mean we're not a brewery that is managed and operated by men. Just 17% of CEOs and 21% of executives of craft breweries are women. But fortunately for me, John and I have created the work environment we want for ourselves. We strive for gender balance and equity. We hire like-minded people who are team players. We have strong policies in place to support working families. And fortunately for me, I don't know what it's like to be a CEO for a brewing company that is dominated by men. All I know is the culture we have created for ourselves and our team of employees. Of course, that does not mean that I'm not susceptible to unfair and annoying gender expectations and dominating male egos. No offense to all the great men that are here today, Senator. But I can't tell you how many times I have been referred to as the owner's wife. Yeah, right? And the older I get, it's the little things that really annoy me more and more. Like this past summer, when one of my husband's good friends from high school was visiting, and I had never met this person, and we're standing outside the brewery, and my husband's friend looks at me and he said, I just love this guy. He's so great. You know what I love most about him, though? What? He said, that he calls himself the co-owner. And I said, now, am I a bad wife for not patting my husband on the back and giving him credit for this? I said, of course, I was gracious and I didn't say anything. This was a very nice woman who really only had good intentions. But can you imagine if someone said that about me? She is so wonderful for giving her husband credit. I mean, kind of crazy, right? But back to my place of work, where we get to create the culture that we want and the values that values men and women equally. Here are some of the things that we do that I think are important, and I think women need to be advocates for policies like these. We all need to be advocate for policies like these. Push for them at the places you work. Try to provide them if you're starting a business, and just advocate for them in general. First, we support our employees, particularly our working families, by providing paid vacation time, paid parental leave, and paid medical leave. I truly believe this is the single most important thing we can do for working parents, provide stable pay and paid time off. Parents can't afford to miss a day's wages when there is a sick day or a snow day. Parents should never have to decide between keeping their children home when they are sick or making rent or even putting food on the table. Second, when possible, we provide flexible time so that our working parents, especially our single parents, can balance work and family. Also, we give daily reimbursements in the amount of $26 for all pre-K childcare. This investment has helped us attract and retain very valuable employees, especially our working mothers. In the past 2 months, we have had 2 employees give birth, and we have 2 more babies on the way. This is our proof that Vermont families will have babies if they have stability and support. I think this is the solution to our population decline. And since we were talking about children, we have always made pregnancy accommodations for our staff, but recently we were really put to the test when one of our brewers became pregnant. This is definitely one of the most physical and demanding jobs we have. But our brewer was able to work right up until the day before she had her baby because her co-workers, Barry and Eric, were willing and able to pick up extra work for her for 3 or 4 months before she went into labor. And you know what? Her co-workers were happy to pick up that extra weight because they know that when their families need them, we will all have their back, and they will. We are incredibly fortunate to be able to provide the benefits that we do. It hasn't always been that way. Beer is definitely the driving force behind the positive good that we get to make through our business. Our workplace culture and the practices and policies we have in place to support our working families and promote gender equity are possible because of our commitment to quality craft beer. But at the same time, we craft an alcoholic beverage. And let's face it, as much positive change as we are making through our business, alcohol in any form is one of the most dangerous drugs in our society. We have all seen it fracture friendships, destroy families, and kill lives. For all the great memories of family I have as a child, I have plenty of memories that were destroyed by alcohol. Ironically, alcohol addiction has also been one of the biggest challenges we have had as an employer. We take great pride in the fact that we have little to no turnover. Over the last 6 years, we have had to let go of 4 people, 3 of them because of alcohol use. These were people we cared about, people that were friends, and people that we really wanted to work alongside for a long time. I think a lot about the fact that women today drink more than ever before. While men have historically consumed more alcohol than women, their consumption rate remains steady, while women's continues to increase every year. Why? Are we using alcohol as a decompression tool? Is this a symptom of our collective stress? Earlier this year, the Wall Street Journal reported that women are working more than ever before. Last year, women spent more time at work, more time taking care of our children. We spent more time doing household chores. We spent less time socializing, and we even spent less time sleeping than men. Our daily responsibilities and our mounting stresses, coupled with the fact that women are constantly being marketed to, you've all heard of skinny girl cocktails, right? It isn't surprising that women are consuming more alcohol than ever before. So as producers of alcohol, how do we reconcile this? Is it possible to do good with something that is so destructive? How can we be the most responsible crafters of alcohol possible? And what can we do to support the people in our community who are suffering from alcohol abuse? These are the questions that we ask ourselves daily. We are constantly forced to look inward and ask ourselves if we are doing the best we can. Are we encouraging our customers to be responsible, to not overindulge, to not drink and drive? Is our marketing responsible? Are we making sure we're not targeting youth or women in any way? Are we thinking about the ways we can reduce the stress in our own workplace? And personally, I'm thinking about the things I can do to better support the women in my life. Am I doing the best I can to communicate with them? Am I reaching out to them when I know they're stressed? Am I reaching out to them when I'm stressed? Instead of asking my girlfriends if they want to meet for a beer when I know they're having a hard time, I'm going to try to ask them to go for a walk or meet for a coffee. We don't have all the answers. I'm sharing my questions with you so you know what I'm thinking about these days. And as a reminder that, like life, business is just a series of questions that we answer every day. Are we doing our best to build equity in the workplace, to help women take on the roles we know they are capable of, to help our employees and their families build happy and positive lives here in Vermont? I don't have all the answers, but I do know that strong workplace policies that support working families are good for everyone, and they are critical if we are serious about gender equity. We know that when our employees and our employees' families have stability, our business has stability. And when our community members have stability, our local economy is stronger. I also know that as women, we need to support each other more to help alleviate some of the stresses that we all endure. We need to talk about our day-to-day challenges with each other, and we need to listen to each other. And us women, we need to do a better job delegating. We need to lighten up our loads. New research actually suggests that we are at a big disadvantage on the delegation front, and that the key to workplace success is not doing all the work ourselves, but by passing as much of it on to others when possible and appropriate. And as the CEO of a brewery, I know it is critical to talk honestly and openly about the bad effects of alcohol, especially as they affect women and women's economic opportunity. We have lots of questions, we have lots of ideas, we've made great progress, but we also have a lot of work to do together. Thank you.
We're going to ask those of you with questions just to raise your hand, and we'll run a microphone to you. Thanks. Someone break the ice.
You ready to give that speech on the road?
It's the first time I've ever talked about alcohol. It's been nagging at me for a while, especially as it pertains to women. So today was my day.
Is she ready to take her speech on advocacy on the road because they're ready for her?
Thank you.
Have you ever considered making a non-alcoholic beer in a really cool can that we can order at the bar?
No, it's really difficult. It's really difficult to make a non-alcoholic beer. It's big equipment, that's big brewery, and that's just not what we do. And I'm not a specialist. I'm not certain non-alcoholic beer is the answer for people trying not to drink either. I don't know. That's a big question. But we are really I'm really thinking about what kind of outreach we can do in the community to help people that are suffering from alcohol abuse.
It seems like in Vermont, a lot of the new businesses coming out are alcohol-based businesses, like the Bar Hill is like super popular. And are you working with other companies to address this? Because it seems like breweries and alcohol and now marijuana are really popping up as a big economic source for Vermont. And how are you as a sort of network of folks working on that?
Yeah, there is no network that I know of like that. This is, for new business owners, especially if you're making an alcohol product, I don't think this is the first thing you're thinking of is just, being successful and staying afloat. We've been in business now 16 years, and we finally got to a place where I'm really thinking about these things. And I definitely want to reach out to some other producers in Vermont and see what sort of messaging we could do around alcohol. Yeah, but I wish I had a better answer, but I want to. This is the beginning. Okay, so keep me, check back with me. Stay on me. Make sure I'm following up with this, because...
Diane. First of all, I just want to say thank you. I'm from Waterbury. I've lived there 25 years. We were regular participants at your restaurant. I live down the road from the production facility, and we love the Alchemist. And thank you. Sue here from Waterbury as well. I consider myself a little bit of an environmentalist, so I wondered if you could speak to sustainability at the factory.
Yes, we're very passionate about the environment and sustainability. We actually just got, for the second year in a row, the Governor's Award for Environmental Excellence. Last year we got it for our water treatment. This year it's for our solar projects. We have an incredible team working really hard on all of our initiatives. The biggest thing is really dealing with our waste, our byproduct, our side stream. But at the end of the day, our water treatment is so good at our Stowe facility. We have a system that we've invested almost $2 million in to date. We have a full-time wastewater manager. The strength of the effluent that we put down the drain every day is less than one household of 3. And in Waterbury, it's higher because we don't have the wastewater system, but we do side stream enough to bring our effluent strengths way below our permit, what's required. So it's still probably equivalent to about 6 households, our Waterbury Brewery, which isn't so bad. We are more than 100% solar powered at our Waterbury Brewery. The extra credits go onto the grid for the senior center. And in Stowe, we're close to about 50% solar powered. We have the first, and I believe the largest parking solar array in the state. And we have a project in the plans for the spring to get to 100% there too. And then we're just leading the way in the industry nationwide. We're working with the large maltsters and distribution groups to get all of the malt grain bags and plastic wrap and everything all into good recycling streams so that it's not landing in landfills. So there are a few things, we have other things, but we're passionate about it. We love the environment. And you know what, I need to add, because this is really important. The environment, climate change, and healthcare, it is the biggest threat to our business. And I mean that totally, I'm so serious. The main ingredients are beer, clean water. You know, clean water is at risk. Hops. Hops are susceptible to droughts and flooding, and even forest fires in the Pacific Northwest can affect the flavor of the hops. Our malt comes from the UK, that's susceptible to flooding and drought as well. We lost our pub due to drastic climate change, so it really is the biggest threat to our business.
I'm aware of your scholarship program. Okay, sorry.
Okay. I am aware of the scholarship program that the Alchemist does, but I'd love you to explain it to the rest of the people to go beyond just the climate change piece, because I think what you're doing in the community for students is also really great.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Liz Schlegel is the executive director of our foundation, and she's here today. She's just amazing. We actually started the Alchemist Fund after the flood in 2011. And we didn't have a lot of money at the time, but what we wanted to do, I called on Liz to help us out. We wanted to offer some scholarships for the kids whose homes were lost in the flood, graduating seniors. And there were a handful of them on Randolph Street. And then from there, it just grew. We started awarding more scholarships. And last year, we finally got our 501c3 2 years ago. Yeah. And we do a lot with youth. Career pathways, educational opportunities within our footprint, so pretty much from Harwood all into Lamoille County. It's been really great going into Lamoille County because there is so much need there. And now we do, how many scholarships do we do every year now, Liz?
We do 13 a year right now. Our scholarship portfolio is 45 students who have scholarships that are renewable every semester.
So that's fun, and that's a part of what we do. And then we do other outreach with schools. So
Hi, I'm Susan Barrett. You mentioned healthcare previously. I just wanted to share how you were able to provide healthcare. Also, it is healthcare, parental leave.
Yep.
All of those things, and maybe some of the challenges you ran into and potential solutions.
Yeah, well, I want to start by saying that when I found out I was pregnant at the age of 31 and I hadn't had health insurance for 10 years, I hadn't been to a doctor in 10 years. Like so many young people today, you graduate college, you don't have health insurance for 10 years, right? So I say the only place I got medical care myself was Planned Parenthood for 12 years of my life, so. $30 visits, I remember so clear. When I became pregnant, I called my friend who was a nurse, and she said, oh my gosh, this was before the Affordable Care Act, right? She said, whatever you do, get health insurance, but don't go to a doctor because you won't get health insurance. Oh my gosh. We ended up getting health insurance as quick as we could, but I didn't have my first prenatal exam until I was 4 months pregnant, which isn't ideal. But, when we got health insurance, we could only afford it for us to begin. And then slowly, as our pub became more popular and we had more resources, we started to slowly professionalize as many jobs as we could and provide health insurance to those folks. So it started with our line cooks and our dishwashers and, some other people, maybe a host. Those positions we professionalized, prep cook, and then the service staff we kept tipped because that was really all we could afford. And today everyone has full health insurance. Out of our 48 employees, not everyone gets our health insurance, but still we spend close to $400,000 a year on our health insurance. With rates going up this next year, it's really an absolute nightmare. We have always offered the Blue Cross Blue Shield Silver Plan, 100%. We don't ask for anything, and we can't do that this year. This year we're going to have to offer the Bronze Plan 100%, and then employees will have to chip in to the premium to get the better plan. And that doesn't feel good, but the fact of the matter is we can't afford $600,000 a year on health insurance, especially when it's health insurance our employees still don't use because they're afraid of their out-of-pocket expenses. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm not gonna talk about healthcare anymore. We don't want to go down that road.
I can listen. You're right.
It's a travesty.
I like to have you come and talk to the Congress.
Yeah, and we set up a loan program for our employees in case they have medical expenses they need. When you look at GoFundMe and you see all these people looking for money, most of them have health insurance. Yes.
I wanted to ask if you have had help. If you had help from Vermont for your ingredients. Or do you have to buy them from some other place?
That's a really good question. The most important ingredient we get, clean water, comes from Vermont. It's true. And we do specialty beers. We call them indigenous beers. We make a Petite Mutant that's made with Almont, Morency cherries. We work with a grower at Allen Home Farm, Ray Allen, up in South Hero, and he actually grows cherries for us, other fruit. He's just a great guy. We don't get our malt from Vermont, and we don't get our hops from Vermont. They're not the varieties that are ideal for the beer we make. The beer we make really relies on pungent Pacific Northwest hops. But we have close relationships with our farmers, and we visit them every year, and we prepay for our hops to help those farmers. And we have close relationships with our farmers in the UK, too. Yep.
Hey, neighbor.
Hi.
I was just wondering if you could speak a little to, not too long ago, I remember there was one place in Morrisville that we could buy Hetty Topper, and we had to wait till the van would come and deliver it, and we'd all rush in and grab our two-pack minimum, or maximum. Talk a little bit about how you handled that extreme growth, and how you got your team around that extreme growth.
Yeah. When we first started canning Hetty Topper, and people were going crazy for it because there was nothing like it. Not now, you look in the cooler, there's so many 4-pack, 16-ounce cans of double ice. We were the first. People were going crazy for it. And people were really not nice to us. People, not Vermonters, beer fans. Oh, you're doing this on purpose, you're purposefully not making enough, you're trying to trick the market, this whole thing. We're in Waterbury, recovering from a flood, making as much beer as we could because we had bills to pay, right? But we knew we had to increase production right away. We had to. It was sink or swim. I'll tell you a really quick story. After the flood, the week after the flood, our banker came in and he said, look, we can get you some emergency money for loan cleanup. I can get you $100,000 next week because we have people there pumping out the building, cleaning it. We had a mortgage on the building. We said, yeah, let's get that $100,000. And the money came right in. And we had $100,000, but the bills from the cleanup didn't start coming in yet. And so I said to John, John, you know what? We could spend that $100,000 and order some tanks from China. And I bet we could get them here by the end of the week. And sure enough, we did. We got those tanks. We had the tanks actually delivered 3 days later because they were already in the United States before they had even taken our $100,000. So we doubled production that week. And 4 weeks later, just as those bills started coming in, we had twice as much beer. So it was a risky, it was a bold move, but it worked. We got our bills paid, we had twice as much beer, and we were able to hire back 6 more employees. So it was hard, it was challenging, but it's a blur. It was kind of like put your head down and just work and increase production and do what you can or give up. So I can't even remember much.
We've time for 2 more questions, so.
Hi, Jen. Mari Cordes from Lincoln. First, I'd just like to tell you I have a picture of someone in St. John, the Virgin Islands, with a case of heady topper on their head. You brought up the topic of gender, and we're here at a women's economic opportunity conference. And I wanted to hear your thoughts about how we lift up non-binary gender ID folks. And how we have conversations to help each other learn that gender is not binary, because there's so many folks that are that we erase by not elevating everyone.
Gosh, it's not my area of expertise. I wish I had the answers. I don't. I think for us, it's just, part of our workplace culture is everyone is equal, be nice to everyone, treat each other fairly. And that's what we do. Beyond that, I don't know what else to add. I would like to learn more. I would like to see what we could do to enhance our gender equity at the Alchemist, and our hiring policies, maybe, our practices, maybe to open up the door to more people that we're not opening it up to. I'm going to work on it. Thank you for that.
One last question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. What a story to tell after the tropical storm Irene. Senator, any?
No, I just want to thank everybody for coming, but I just told Jen that was her speech was like a master's class in business college. It was. I think I learned a lot. I hope you did. But I'd also urge you. We have my website and all. You got thoughts, send them. Sometimes I'll get 25,000 emails in a week. Obviously, I'm not going to respond to every single one of them, but I get enough of them so I get some idea what it is. Some people I call them back, and when I place the call, I have had a couple of times, said, "Hi, this is Patrick Leahy." Out here, yeah, who is this really? It's Patrick Leahy. Jim, is that you? You sound just like that Leahy guy. It is the Leahy guy. So thank you.